to Grown Women Talk. I'm Kia.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Cheré.
Today we're talking about a very important topic, a topic that has come to light. It has been in existence, but it came to light recently because of a viral video that took place in Baltimore. We're talking about student violence against teachers. About a month or so ago, I know that many of you saw the video, even those of you who are not in Baltimore. It did happen at a Baltimore City public school where a student punched her teacher. And it was a video that was seen by so many because of what it really showed that is happening right now. And so we have some very special guests with us today, some experts on this issue to talk with us about it. And we're just going to introduce them right now. We're so glad to have with us Joann Holly, who is a retired administrator from Baltimore City Public Schools. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
We have Kevin Turner with us, who is a former Baltimore City homicide detective and currently serves as a VIP security expert. Thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And we have Angie Winder, is it Winder?
Yes,
Winder,
yes.
who is with the Democratic Central Committee. She's a member of the Democratic Central Committee, District 43 in Baltimore City, and a community activist. And don't we need more community activists?
Yes.
So thank you so much for being with us today. We want to open up with you, Ms. Holly. And if you could share with us your experience being in the Baltimore City school system and what your experience and what happened with you with this topic.
I've been was working in Baltimore City Public Schools for virtually 45 years. I came through the ranks from a teacher on up to an administrator. Most of the children in Baltimore City Public Schools, I believe, are looking for love. They bring their issues from home into the school building, and when they're unable to handle their issues at home, naturally it comes into the school setting. When it comes down to the teachers, I believe for the most part, Baltimore City Public Schools has loving, nurturing, caring teachers, but they're not all trained to deal with the issues that the students come to school with. And not only do you have student issues, but you have parent issues. And a lot of times we find ourselves nurturing the parents as well as nurturing the children. In my own personal experience, I was caught up in a situation where a dad was taking a child that he shouldn't have had. And in the end, I ended up being assaulted by the dad. So the assaults come from the parents as well as it comes from the students, but it's more prevalent now because all the kids have cell phones. And they video these incidents, and as the one at Douglas, it goes viral, and then that's when it becomes aware to the public. I think the major problem is that everyone wants the schools to solve the public issues when we have children for 7.5 hours a day.
Wow.
There's only but so much you can do in 7.5 hours. And while we present them with a loving and caring environment, when they leave, they go back home to the same environment that they were raised up in. And that's where the difficulty comes.
You have said a mouthful. You have
Yes.
said so much.
Yes.
Because this is such a big issue that we're like,
Yes.
how do we attack it? I do know that in Baltimore there's a special commission, I believe, that has been set up to try to deal with the issue, bringing people from various segments, backgrounds, which we're trying to do today. So I want to say, what do you all think? If you can weigh in with us, what do we do about this issue? I mean, let's start by saying, what should we even do with the students who commit such assaults? Because everybody's still asking about what has happened to this student, and we don't know, but what do we think should happen? And then we'll delve more into this.
Well, coming from a law enforcement standpoint, there are so many underlying issues dealing with kids, parents, and just like with law enforcement, Law enforcement was not created to deal with so many social, economic issues that we have today. It was to walk the old lady across the street, get the cat out the tree. As times have changed, you know, we have to deal with so many issues that we're not equipped to deal with also. And the lack of training, coming from a law enforcement point of view, we are there to enforce the laws. So when a kid breaks the law in school, unlike the school police in Baltimore City, they don't enter the school until at the very last minute. School police need to be in the school system 24 hours a day to kind of deter the issues that we have. The city council will not allow them to have their guns in the school or to be in the school until they get a call. By that time, it's too late. So let the law enforcement do what they were meant to do, enforce the laws. And you can't have it both ways.
Jump in, girl, jump in. I see you over there.
That
Jump
makes
in.
me nervous as a parent of a 14-year-old, a boy, as a matter of fact, who, you know, first of all, the thought that he would assault a teacher is just, I can't even run that tape in my head. But what is scary to me is that there's almost like this militia, that there's the thought that we have to have security in school. I mean, and then what kind of environment does that lend itself to? Is that the appropriate environment for us to learn and grow? And I hear you that they don't have the guns. And again, you guys are the experts. I'm not. I'm just thinking as a parent of a 14, almost 15. You have a 15-year-old. Just the thought of them having to come to school on a regular basis, and there is security or police there on a regular.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this. There has to be some kind of compromise, happy medium that we have, that a society has to determine what that is at this point. Because as you've indicated, times have changed. There was another case, I think in California, where this teacher, not maybe like a couple months ago, but it resurfaced when this came about, where this teacher was taunted by the student, and he snapped and he started fighting the student, and he got arrested. But we have to either make the teacher safer or have law enforcement, but there's something, or else we're not going to have anybody wanting to teach anymore. So I
was going to say, even with the statements you just made, we have teachers that are resigning. Because they don't believe that they have protection, that they are even being heard or supported. And as far as even with Kevin had mentioned, as a past PTA president at the largest high school in Baltimore City, we have school police there, and they are not intimidating. In fact, they've made partnerships and allow the students to know that they're there for them. And like Kevin said, they're not only just coming in there taunting their guns, because I haven't seen that, but they are building relationships with the students. They're making them feel safe. If we're not going to have a metal detective in the school, how do we know that we can protect the school? And that's their job. We got to kind of let the law enforcement do their job. We have issues there, but there should be some task force. And as Ms. Holly said, I'm trying to get everything I was already thinking of, because this is good. But what Ms. Holly stated was the students want to feel loved. That's one. And two, parents need to be parents.
Yes.
And my daughter graduated from there. I'm still involved in school, and you have to be parents. You have to be involved. PTA meetings, school board meetings. There are no parents there.
You're right.
Everyone has to do their part.
You're right. So true.
And on that note, we actually in the city, they don't call them school police officers. They call them school resource officers. And right now, Baltimore City is short-staffed. They don't have enough school resource officers, and basically they put them in middle and high schools. Because that's where basically the problems stem. And at one point when we did have a school resource officer in the building, they will frequent the building, they get to know the children respect them. They feel like if they have a problem, they can go to them. On the other hand, because of budget constraints and everything, the city has cut back on the school counselors, they cut back on the time the psychologists are in the building and the social workers that are in the building. All of that plays into it. because you have to have the proper people in place to service these children.
Exactly.
That's right.
Please.
You know, Aunt Joann, Mrs. Holly is a dear friend.
Who happens to be an expert on this issue.
Absolutely. And I have walked with her somewhat on this journey, and we've talked a lot about
Yes.
what happens in schools, and she knows about my passion about mental health
Yes.
and families, and we've discussed this at length. And we have talked even about my coming into the school, and just that my schedule wouldn't allow it. But if I could give a recommendation as a therapist who is also partnered with pediatrics at Sinai Hospital, one of the programs that I implemented was connecting our children who were coming to get medical care, who needed help in schools, with mental health programs in the community, psychiatric rehab programs, PRPs, who would send someone with the child to the school and help be the liaison between parents and people at the school, and homework assignments and other things that the child could be involved in the school. I would recommend that the city make it mandatory that the budget allow for a mental health professional, at least one in every school.
Yes.
Full time.
Yes.
Full
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Because families need help.
Yes.
Not only just
Families
counseling,
need help.
they need food resources.
Yes.
They need clothing resources. They need help for other issues around rental properties,
Yes.
housing. There's so many needs that children have that are not being met, and this is at the root of the problems in the school.
Man, that is so powerful, because we can't even tap on everything today. You know, we just scratching the surface. But this is such a huge thing, because as we have again, I could come back to you again, Kevin, when you talked about times have changed. We have an overwhelming epidemic of opioid addiction in our state, and it's permeating around the country. But those people who are experiencing addiction and so forth, they have children. You know, I watched on the news a couple of months ago where they were interviewing a lady who said all day she looks for $4. All day she looks for $4 so that she can get high. What happens to those children? But we turn them over to the schools for y'all to be with them all day. People who may not have had anything to eat. The children who may not have had anybody ask them about their homework. Children who may come to school without clean clothing. There was a principal I saw on Ellen who talked about, he noticed that his children, his students were getting in fights. And they were getting in fights because they didn't have clean clothing, because they were dirty people making fun of them. So he went out and got washing machines, donated, so that the children could come and wash their clothes. And he has seen the fighting and the taunting go down. It is issues like that need to be addressed. And what you're talking about, families are in crisis. And so what are we prepared as a society to do to help children who are coming from various backgrounds, who may not get everything that they need from home?
I struggle with that, and I hear it. It makes perfect sense, and I hear all of you and have a great deal of respect for. I just struggle with that.
As far as what?
You know, so what about the student who that's not necessarily their issue, and she strikes or he strikes a teacher? And I want you to be. I'm progressive, obviously, and I don't want to sound like we're making excuses, because I know those are very real. Those things are very real. But I struggle with, you know, there have been times, yesteryears, when kids didn't have resources, but they weren't fighting teachers.
But you go back to different times, though. You're talking about when we grew up, 70s, 80s.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
The-
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm
Yeah.
70s, 80s. Yeah.
You had jobs. People were making money. People were doing okay financially. And as times changed, you know, jobs were cut. Gas is $4 a gallon. You know, so you got to, where am I going to put my money? How am I going to provide for my family? And there's a whole lot of underlying issues that we can talk about forever.
Right.
You know, and it goes back to respect for each other.
Yes.
We don't have respect for each other,
Come
unlike
on.
we did back the
I
other day.
think that's what
And the whole
Respect.
all
authority
of
issue.
that.
For
You always
authority.
respect police, you always respect teachers, and you always respect the old lady in the block.
Absolutely.
All that is gone, because all you have now is the technology. There is no social interaction between kids.
Wow.
You know,
Yes.
I'm on
That's
the
so
PlayStation
important.
That's so
all
good.
day long. I got my pad. I'm texting all day. Technology helped us a lot, but it also hurt us
Yes.
Okay.
because there's no social interaction.
Okay.
I used to go outside every day. I could talk to you. I knew your mother.
Yes.
I knew your
yes.
grandmother.
That's right.
And we had that social interaction. We
That's
don't have
so
that
true.
now. So when I went to school, again, when I went to school to learn. I went to school to see my friends.
Yeah.
Now I go to school to get away from the other issues that I have in my household.
To eat.
Wow.
Right.
Yes, to
To,
eat.
you know, like you said, get away from.
be
I think one of the other issues are the violence, and that's kind of where my area is. I'm a widow, and that is my partake of a lot of this stuff too. We ended 2018 with 309 murders. How many of those 309 have been affected? Those students, that's someone's uncle, that's someone's father, that's someone's
true.
mother.
That's true.
They're going and they're lashing out because they want love. They're hurting without they didn't get that support, they didn't get that help
Yes.
that they needed. So the first thing someone says, they're snapping.
Yes. And I think that we can talk about a dual track because we're not, I don't think we're saying not to penalize these students or not to discipline these students.
Consequences.
There are consequences for
Absolutely.
actions and that should be determined. And I hope that that's some of the things that are being dealt with this commission. But there needs to be a dual track to deal with these systemic
That's fair.
issues.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Because should this student return to the classroom? Probably not. Maybe some students need to go to a specialized school environment until they can build back up to be able to be around other students. I don't know. But I think that there needs to be a dual track that deals with issues and deals with also disciplinary response when totally they are acting out of the norm and out of what is proper and what is right, because you can't disrespect the teacher and then expect the other students to respect the teacher and them to be able to learn.
That's correct.
You know?
And I think part of the problem also is that you have so many parents that are so young that they become parents before they even really experience adulthood. So they don't know what it takes to be a parent, and we need to have the resources for young ladies who become parents at a young age. I've known girls as young as 12 years old to be pregnant and have children. They don't know anything about taking care of a child because they're a child themselves. So we need to put things in order, starting almost from the beginning when they come into school. And not only do you service the children, but you have to service the parents. But if you have parents that don't come to PTA meetings, don't come up on open house to visit to see what their child is doing, the only time you see them is when their child says, the teacher says such and such, or the teacher did such and such. And they go home with this story, and the parents believe whatever the children say, and they come up there angry and ready to lash out. And if this is what the children are seeing from the parents, then what do you expect them to do when something goes wrong?
You know, I think that one of the things that as a society we probably have to do is to look at best practices and what some other people are doing. When public school system needs more resources, needs more funding, and remember when the whole charter schools started to build and flourish and everything to give more resources, more this and more that, and the Harlem Zone was developed in New York, where they gave something which you all were talking about, I think you touched on, but giving all these resources to families, health care for the families, and food for the children, and starting at Head Start age. But they started from infancy and brought them up. And I think that was so important, and they followed those students. But we do need to look at best practices, study that principal who got the wash machines, but study best practices for what we need to do to address young people in today's times. And I do want to say that one of my favorite documentaries that I watched years ago, but I think it's so important, I've talked about it when I've spoken places, Boys of Baraka, was an excellent documentary that was filmed here in Baltimore that talked about young African American boys being taken out of the school system and taken to Africa to learn. They took technology from them. They gave them all the resources, and it showed how they boosted their self-esteem.
Yes.
They boosted their scores. They learned how to mediate their own conflicts. It was so wonderful. And then when a coup d'etat broke out there and they had to come back, those boys cried because they saw their lives change in this different structure, different environment. And I do think that it takes something totally different that we'll have to look at to address what's going on in today's times.
Right, right, that's true. That's true.
You know, we have, just scratched the surface, you all, today. I think that we may have to come and revisit this issue again at some point. But we can't thank you all enough for coming to be with us today, for sharing your story, for sharing some thoughts about what we think may be possible and what we will need to do. And I'm so glad that we have this forum, you all, at Grow Women Talk, where we want to bring the important issues to you, and we will continue to do that. So thank you all so much. And as we like to say here at Grow Women Talk, get ready,
Reset.
And go.
bye.
Bye.